Can I tell you about the photograph that haunts me? It sits on my bedside table in a simple silver frame. Nothing elaborate or ornate, just a thin metal border around a moment I can never get back. But that ordinary frame holds the dividing line between everything that was and everything that is now. My name is Sophia, I'm 27, and this story begins on a sun-drenched August afternoon in California, with salt air blowing through the open windows of my brother's vintage Mustang and the sound of laughter, almost loud enough to drown out the ocean waves crashing below the coastal highway. Noah was visiting for the weekend, a rare break from his grueling residency program at a Chicago hospital. At 24, my baby brother was already making a name for himself in emergency medicine, his natural intuition and steady hands earning praise from veteran doctors who typically spared little encouragement for first-year residents. I'd picked him up from the San Francisco airport that morning, immediately noticing how much thinner he looked, how the dark circles under his eyes had deepened since Christmas. But his smile, that irrepressible, slightly crooked grin that had charmed his way out of trouble since childhood, remained unchanged. "You look exhausted," I'd said as we hugged in the arrivals terminal. "Good to see you too, Soph," he'd replied with a laugh, shouldering his backpack. "Your compliments never get old." That was Noah deflecting concern with humor, turning potential worry into a shared joke. He'd been doing it since we were kids, making Mom laugh instead of scold when he'd come home with ripped jeans and scraped knees, charming Dad out of his stern expression when report cards showed more potential than performance. I'd planned the perfect California weekend for him, a careful balance of activity and relaxation, designed to pack as much sunshine and fresh air as possible into his brief escape from Chicago's hospital fluorescence. Friday afternoon's agenda was a drive down Highway 1, stopping at the best vista points, ending with dinner at a tiny seafood place perched on the cliffs in Half Moon Bay. The convertible was my idea, an indulgent rental to maximize the coastal experience. Noah had whooped with delight when I pulled up in the cherry red Mustang, immediately adjusting the mirrors and seat as if it was already his. "Seriously?" he'd asked, running a hand over the dashboard. "You hate driving?" "I don't hate it," I'd corrected. "I hate Bay Area traffic. This," I gestured toward the open road ahead, "is different." He'd grinned that grin, tossing his weekend bag into the back seat. "Then I'm definitely driving." I didn't argue. Noah behind the wheel meant I could watch him instead catch the subtle changes 36-hour shifts and life-or-death decisions had etched into my little brother's face. He'd always been the family golden boy, bright and charming and seemingly effortless in his brilliance. But adulthood, I was learning, demanded payment for gifts that had once appeared free. We drove with the top down, wind whipping my hair into a tangled mess I would later regret. Noah's playlist blasting everything from classic rock to indie bands I'd never heard of. He drove with one hand casually draped over the wheel, sunglasses pushing back his too long hair, occasionally pointing out something on the horizon or shouting a question that would get half lost in the wind. At a particularly stunning overlook, vast blue ocean stretching endlessly westward, waves crashing against rocky cliffs below, Noah pulled over, cutting the engine but leaving the radio playing softly. "We have to document this," he announced, already pulling out his phone. "Mom will never believe I voluntarily left the hospital if we don't have photographic evidence." I groaned but followed him to the cliff's edge, where a weathered wooden fence served as both safety barrier and natural photo frame. The August sun was beginning its slow descent, casting everything in a golden glow that even an iPhone camera couldn't completely miss. "Closer," Noah directed, waving me toward him with his free hand. I'm not wasting this light on a shot where you look like my distant acquaintance. I obliged, stepping closer until our shoulders touched. He extended his arm, angling the phone for the perfect selfie with the ocean spread behind us. Smile like you actually like me, he instructed, his own grin widening. I tolerate you at best, I replied, but found myself matching his smile anyway, the muscle memory of a lifetime of photographs together. From awkward school portraits to holiday cards to graduation ceremonies, just before he took the shot, Noah turned to me. His expression suddenly serious, despite the smile still playing at the corners of his mouth. This will be our last photo together, he said. His tone caught somewhere between joking and something else I couldn't quite identify. I rolled my eyes, shoving his shoulder lightly. Stop being dramatic, I replied automatically. You're becoming more like Mom every day. His smile faltered for just a moment, so briefly I might have imagined it. Then the familiar grin returned, perhaps a touch forced. Yeah, well, medical school will do that to you, he said, turning back to the camera. Makes you morbid. Now smile for real. I did, leaning into him as he snapped several photos in quick succession. We checked them together afterward, Noah scrolling through with a critical eye. That one, I said, pointing to the third image. We both look human in that one. Speak for yourself, he replied. I looked dashing and windswept in all of them. But he nodded agreement, sending the chosen photo to both our phones before pocketing his. We returned to the car, Noah pausing with his hand on the door handle. Seriously though, Soph, he said, looking out at the ocean rather than at me. When did we get so busy that we stopped taking pictures together? Used to be we couldn't get through a family dinner without Mom insisting on at least 3. I shrugged, already sliding into the passenger seat. We grew up, got lives. Happens to everyone. He nodded slowly, still gazing at the horizon. Yeah, he said finally. I guess it does. We continued down the coast, the moment of seriousness quickly forgotten in the pleasure of the drive, the anticipation of fresh seafood, the precious rarity of unscheduled time together. By evening, seated at a weathered wooden table overlooking the darkening ocean, sharing a bottle of local wine and arguing good-naturedly about childhood memories, the photo had become just another image in my phone's bloated gallery. The weekend passed too quickly, as such visits always do. We hiked in Muir Woods on Saturday, had dinner with friends that evening, spent Sunday morning at the Ferry Building Farmers Market before I drove him back to the airport. The goodbye was quick, a tight hug in the departure lane, a promise to call more often, a wave as he disappeared through the sliding doors. Next time, come to Chicago, he called over his shoulder. I want to show you my neighborhood. Deal, I replied, already checking the time to make sure I wouldn't get ticketed for lingering in the drop-off zone. 3 days later, I was in a meeting when my phone began vibrating incessantly in my pocket. I ignored it initially. My role as creative director at a boutique marketing firm meant client presentations took priority over personal calls. But when it immediately rang again after going to voicemail, a flutter of unease made me excuse myself. In the hallway outside the conference room, I stared at the screen. 7 missed calls from my mother. A text message, uncharacteristically brief. Call me now. The world tilted sideways even before I heard her voice, before the unthinkable words tumbled out between her sobs, before the details emerged in fragmented, horrifying clarity. Noah had collapsed during rounds at the hospital, an undiagnosed heart conditions, something with too many syllables that meant nothing and everything all at once. The cruel irony of a young doctor falling in the very halls where he'd begun healing others, the desperate efforts of colleagues who refused to accept that one of their own could slip away despite their combined expertise. The golden boy extinguished at 20. In the surreal fog that followed the flight to Illinois, the funeral arrangements, the numbness that prevented total collapse, I found myself obsessively returning to that photograph, the one from the cliff with the endless ocean behind us, the one Noah had so deliberately set up, had so strangely introduced. This will be our last photo together. And my dismissive response, stop being dramatic. Was it possible? Had he somehow known? Had his doctor's intuition extended to his own mortality, sensing what none of us could see? Or was it simply an offhand comment, a morbid joke from a medical student too familiar with human fragility, now rendered prophetic by cruel coincidence? I'll never know. But the photo, our last photo together, now sits in a simple silver frame beside my bed, the last documentation of my brother's smile, his windswept hair, his arms slung casually around my shoulders as if there would be 1,000 more such moments. In it, we are both laughing, faces turned slightly toward each other rather than directly at the camera. The ocean stretches out behind us, vast and enduring and indifferent. When people notice the frame and ask about it, I tell them it's from a perfect California day with my brother. I don't tell them about his strange pronouncement or my impatient dismissal or the way those offhand words have taken on the weight of prophecy. I don't tell them it's the dividing line between the person I was careless with precious moments, dismissive of subtle warnings, too busy for connections that seemed constant and therefore guaranteed, and the person I've become in the aftermath of unimaginable loss. I don't tell them how many times I've held that frame in the dark hours of early morning, tracing his smile through the glass, whispering apologies he will never hear. Stop being dramatic, I had said, brushing aside what might have been his attempt to tell me something important, or what might have been nothing more than a passing comment now rendered significant only through the terrible lens of hindsight. I will never know which it was. And that uncertainty has become part of my grief, a private weight I carry alongside the more visible absence of my brother in the world. The last photo, the last laugh, the last chance to hear what might have been hidden beneath his words, all preserved behind glass, both present and untouchable, just like the memory of Noah himself. Chapter 2, the frame that holds what's lost. 638 days have passed since I placed that photo in its silver frame. 638 mornings of opening my eyes to Noah's frozen smile. 638 nights of whispering goodnight to a piece of glossy paper behind glass. The human capacity for adapting to loss is both merciful and terrible. Life continues its relentless forward motion despite the holes torn in its fabric. I still work, still laugh occasionally, still function in the world with a competence that sometimes surprises me. From the outside, healing appears to have taken place. The jagged edges of grief have softened, if not disappeared entirely, but some wounds change shape rather than heal completely. The photograph by my bed is no longer the first thing I reach for in moments of fresh sorrow, but it remains the most tangible connection to the brother I lost to the moment just before everything changed. When we were still just two siblings enjoying a perfect California day, unaware of how numbered our moments together truly were. 3 months after the funeral, I moved to Chicago. The decision baffled my friends and worried my parents, who feared I was punishing myself by relocating to the city where Noah had died. But it felt necessary, essential, even to walk the streets he had walked, to see the sights that had formed the backdrop of his final months, to somehow know the person he was becoming in the time we spent apart. I found an apartment in his neighborhood, deliberately choosing a different building, but the same general area. On my first night there, surrounded by unpacked boxes and takeout containers, I placed his photo on my new bedside table, the only decorative element in an otherwise transitional space. "I'm here," I told his smiling image. "Show me your city." In those early days, Chicago felt less like a new home and more like a shrine to Noah's interrupted life. I sought out the coffee shop where he'd studied during medical school, recognizable from his Instagram posts. I found the lake path where he'd gone running to clear his head after difficult shifts. I even, after weeks of building courage, visited the hospital where he had both worked and died, standing across the street and imagining him walking through those doors in his white coat, confident and purposeful despite his youth. I didn't seek out his former colleagues or classmates. That felt like an invasion, a desperate attempt to collect secondhand memories I had no right to claim. But I did begin volunteering in the hospital's family waiting room once a month, a small way to honor his chosen profession, while maintaining a respectful distance from those who had known him personally. Gradually, imperceptibly, Chicago transformed from Noah's city to mine as well. I found my own favorite cafes, my own running routes, my own rhythms and routines that had nothing to do with retracing his steps. The relocation that had begun as a pilgrimage slowly evolved into a genuine new chapter, not erasing what came before, but adding to it, layering new experiences over the foundation of grief. Throughout it all, the photograph remained my constant companion, not just the physical print in its silver frame, but the digital version in my phone, ready to be accessed in moments of sudden longing or on significant dates when his absence felt freshly raw. I found myself studying it with increasing frequency as the first anniversary of his passing approached, tantalizing every pixel as if it might contain some previously undiscovered clue. Some explanation for his prescient words on that cliff overlooking the Pacific. "This will be our last photo together." Had he known something was wrong with his heart? Had there been symptoms he'd recognized through his medical training but chosen not to share? Or was it truly just a random comment, a momentary morbid thought from a young doctor who saw mortality up close every day? I'll never have answers to these questions. That uncertainty has become part of the texture of my grief, not just the pain of loss, but the maddening ambiguity of what might have been prevented, what might have been said differently, what might have changed if I had responded with concern instead of dismissal. 4 months ago, I met someone, a graphic designer who collaborates with my marketing firm. Matt is kind and patient, with an easy laugh and a gentle way of asking questions that leave room for complicated answers. After weeks of professional interaction that gradually evolved into friendship, he asked me to dinner. I surprised myself by saying yes. On our third date, he came to my apartment to pick me up. While I was finishing getting ready, he noticed the photo on my nightstand. "Great shot," he commented. "The light is perfect." "Your brother," I froze in the bathroom doorway, mascara wand still in hand. In the year and a half since Noah's passing, I'd become adept at mentioning him casually in conversation, acknowledging his absence without inviting pity. But something about Matt noticing the photo unprompted, entering the private space of my grief without realizing its significance left me momentarily speechless. Yes, I managed, finally. "That's Noah." Matt must have heard something in my voice because he turned to look at me directly, his expression shifting from casual interest to gentle concern. "You were close." "He died," I said simply, "almost 2 years ago." Matt's face registered shock, then genuine sadness. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. I had no idea. I nodded, returning to the bathroom to finish my makeup, needing the brief reprieve from his sympathetic gaze. When I emerged, he was still standing by the nightstand, looking at the photo with new understanding. "He has your smile," he said quietly. "Or you have his." The observation so simple, so true, yet something no one had articulated before broke something open inside me. Before I could stop them, tears were streaming down my freshly applied makeup, ruining the careful facade I'd constructed for the evening. Matt didn't try to fix it with platitudes or awkward comfort. He simply stood there, present with my grief, offering silent witness to a pain I usually kept carefully contained. When I could speak again, the story spilled out not just the bare facts of Noah's passing, but the weight of that final photograph, the strange pronouncement, my dismissive response, the silver frame that had become both comfort and torment. "Do you think he knew?" Matt asked when I finished, the question direct, but gentle. "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me thinks he must have felt something was wrong, that his doctor's intuition was trying to warn him, but another part thinks I'm just looking for meaning in coincidence, trying to create a pattern from random events. Matt was quiet for a moment, considering. "Maybe it's both," he suggested finally. Maybe he had some vague sense something wasn't right, but not real knowledge, just enough awareness to make a comment that seemed casual in the moment, but has taken on more significance in hindsight. His words offered no definitive answer, but somehow made space for the uncertainty. That had been part of my grief from the beginning, acknowledged it as reasonable rather than obsessive, as a natural response to ambiguous loss rather than a failure to move on properly. We missed our dinner reservation that night, ordering takeout instead and talking for hours about Noah, about loss, about the ways grief reshapes a life without ever truly leaving it. It was the first time I'd spoken so openly about my brother since the immediate aftermath of his death, when shock had made the words flow more freely. In the months since, Matt has become an unexpected companion in my continuing journey with grief. He asks about Noah sometimes, not with morbid curiosity, but with genuine interest in knowing the person who shaped so much of who I am. He notices when difficult anniversaries approach, offering presence without pressure. He understands that healing doesn't mean forgetting or getting over it, but rather learning to carry the weight differently. Last week marked 2 years since Noah died. Instead of treating it as a day to endure alone, I took a different approach. With Matt's encouragement, I organized a small gathering of friends, some who had known Noah, others who knew only what I'd shared about him. We met at a lakeside park in Chicago, at the spot where the skyline view had been Noah's favorite during his morning runs. I brought the photo in its silver frame, setting it on a picnic table as we shared stories, both serious and funny, about the people we've lost. The frame caught the late summer sunlight, glinting silver against the blue sky, so similar to the California day when Noah and I had stood on that cliff, unaware that everything was about to change. As dusk fell and the gathering began to disperse, I found myself sitting alone with the framed photo, tracing the outline of Noah's profile with my fingertip as I had so many times before. "I miss you," I whispered to his frozen smile. Every day in different ways. For the first time, I allowed myself to wonder what Noah would think of how I've carried his memory, if he would approve of the shrine-like quality I've given to our last photograph, or if he would gently tease me for being, in his words, so dramatic. The thought brought an unexpected smile to my lips. Noah, who deflected tension with humor and navigated difficult emotions with well-timed jokes, would probably be both touched and mortified by the reverence with which I've treated his casual comment and our final photo. Sitting there in the gathering darkness, Chicago's lights beginning to twinkle against the night sky, I realized something I'd been missing in my 2-year examination of that moment on the cliff. The last laugh captured in our photograph isn't just a painful reminder of what's lost, it's also evidence of what remains. We were laughing together. Whatever premonition might or might not have been brewing in Noah's consciousness, whatever dismissal I offered to his comment, the fundamental truth of that moment was joy shared, genuine, captured forever. That night, back in my apartment, I took out a journal I hadn't written in since Noah died and began a letter I should have started long ago. Dear Noah, it's been 2 years since you left, and I'm still trying to make sense of that last weekend we had together, still turning over every moment like stones in a riverbed, searching for meaning in the patterns. This will be our last photo together, you said, and I told you to stop being dramatic. I've replayed those words more times than I can count, wondering if you knew something was wrong, if you were trying to tell me in your own way, if I missed signs that might have changed everything. But I'm beginning to understand that the weight I've given those words says more about my grief than your intention. Whether you had some unconscious sense of what was coming or were just making a random comment, either way, it was just one moment in a lifetime of moments between us. The photo sits by my bed in a silver frame. In it, we're both laughing, the ocean endless behind us, the California sun in our hair. For so long, I've focused on the fact that it was our last picture together, forgetting to see what it actually captures, not an ending, but one perfect afternoon when my little brother and I were happy in the same place at the same time. I moved to Chicago. Did I tell you that? It started as a way to feel closer to you, to understand the life you were building here. But it's become my home now, to not replacing what I lost, but adding something new alongside it. I'm trying to learn how to carry you with me without being crushed by your absence, to honor what we had without getting stuck in what might have been, to see that photograph not just as our last, but as one of hundreds we took throughout our lives, each capturing a different moment in our story together. Sometimes I still get angry at the universe for taking you so soon, at the medical condition that went undetected despite your career in healthcare, at myself for all the calls I didn't make and visits I postponed because I thought we had time. So much time. I've met someone. His name is Matt. You would like him. He has your sense of humor, but none of your terrible taste in music. He noticed your photo the first time he came to my apartment and said, "We have the same smile." I broke down crying, and instead of running away, he stayed. He asks about you sometimes, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wants to know the person who shaped so much of who I am. I'm learning that grief isn't something to get over or move past. It's more like a new landscape I have to navigate, with unexpected valleys and peaks that appear just when I think I've mapped the territory. Some days are harder than others. Birthdays, holidays, the anniversary of that last weekend in California. Remember how you used to tease me for being too serious, too planned, too worried about every little thing? You'd call me professor when I overthought something simple, just like Dad did. I can almost hear you now, looking at this letter, saying, "Lighten up, Soph, it's not that deep." But here's what I've realized. In that photo, our last photo, the final laugh is indeed captured there. Not as something lost, but as something I still have. A moment of pure joy with my brother on a perfect day when nothing else mattered. I've been so focused on the words, "This will be our last photo together," that I forgot to see the image itself. Two siblings laughing together, completely present in that moment. Whether you knew something was coming or not doesn't change what that photograph actually shows. I'll never know if you had some premonition that day on the cliff, but I do know that you lived fully right up until the end. You took the scenic route. You insisted on stopping for the perfect photo. You made me laugh when I was worried about traffic and schedules. In other words, you were completely, authentically Noah the golden boy who knew, better than I ever did, how to be present in the moment. I'm trying to learn that from you, even now. To take the scenic route sometimes. To stop for the photos. To laugh more easily. To be a little less professor and a little more present. The frame on my bedside table no longer feels like just a memorial to what I've lost. It's also a reminder of what I still have. Every memory, every inside joke, every shared experience that made us who we were together. A silver frame can't contain all of that. It's just one moment, one laugh, one click of a camera shutter. The real Noemi, brilliant, funny, occasionally annoying little brother exists in something much larger than a photograph. He exists in the way I see the world, in the doctor I thank when leaving a hospital appointment, in the terrible puns I now make that would have earned your approval, in the courage I'm trying to find to live as openly and boldly as you did. I don't know if you can read this letter, or if it's just my way of organizing thoughts too complicated for conversation. But if you're out there somewhere, watching your too serious big sister fumble her way through grief toward something that feels like healing, I hope you're laughing not at me, but with me, the way you are in our last photo together. I love you, Noah, more than any frame could ever hold. Your sister always, Sophia. I closed the journal, feeling lighter than I had in months. The letter wouldn't change anything, wouldn't bring Noah back, wouldn't answer my questions about what he did or didn't know that day on the cliff, wouldn't erase the pain of his absence from all the future photos that will never include him. But something had shifted in how I held that pain. The silver frame on my bedside table was no longer just a monument to loss, but also a celebration of what had been a perfect California day with the brother I adored, both of us laughing, the ocean endless behind us, neither of us knowing what lay ahead, but fully present in that shared moment of joy. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since moving to Chicago. I went running along the lake, path Noah's favorite route, the one I'd traced so carefully in those early days of grief, but had eventually abandoned as too painful. The September air was crisp, the lake shifting between deep blue and silver as clouds moved across the sky. I wasn't dressed properly for running, wearing jeans and casual sneakers instead of proper athletic gear, having made the decision spontaneously upon waking. Noah would have teased me mercilessly about my outfit, he who owned specialized gear for every possible weather condition, who could lecture for hours about the importance of proper running shoes. The thought made me smile as I jogged awkwardly along the path, earning curious glances from serious runners in their carefully coordinated attire. Yes, my brother would think this is ridiculous too, I said aloud to a particularly judgmental-looking man who passed me with a sideways glance at my jeans. He looked startled, then broke into an unexpected smile. My sister would say the same, he offered, slowing his pace slightly, about me running at all. She thinks it's bizarre to do for fun what our ancestors did from necessity. The brief exchange with a stranger about siblings inspired by thoughts of Noah felt like a small gift, a reminder that connections continue to form even in a world where my brother no longer exists physically, that his influence shapes even casual interactions with people he never met. I finished my impromptu run at the spot where we'd gathered for Noah's 2-year anniversary, the lookout with his favorite skyline view. Breathless and sweaty, I took out my phone and, feeling slightly self-conscious, positioned myself for a selfie with the Chicago skyline behind me. Just before taking the photo, I whispered, "This one's for you, Noah." I examined the result critically afterward, my hair wild from the run, my face flushed, the skyline slightly off-center. In the frame, not perfect by any standard, certainly not the golden California light of our last photo together, but authentic, present, alive in a way I hadn't fully been since losing him. That evening, I carefully removed the photo of Noah and me from its silver frame, not to put it away never, but to place it in a new context. I bought a large corkboard for my living room wall and pinned our last photo in the center. Around it, I began adding other images, childhood snapshots of us building sandcastles at the beach, awkward middle school photos with braces and unfortunate haircuts, high school graduations, college Marvin days, the last Christmas we'd all spent together as a family, and at the edge, my imperfect selfie from the lake path that morning, a visual declaration that while life with Noah had ended, life itself continued. Not the same, not unmarked by loss, but stubbornly, persistently moving forward. The silver frame remained on my bedside table, but now it held a different image, a candid shot my mother had taken years ago. Noah and me doubled over in laughter at some long-forgotten joke, neither of us aware the camera was capturing the moment, not our last photo, but perhaps one that better captured the essence of our relationship, the shared humor, the easy companionship, the genuine delight in each other's presence. Matt noticed the change immediately the next time he visited. "New picture," he observed, picking up the frame. "I like this one." "What were you laughing about?" "I don't even remember," I admitted, "probably something ridiculous." "Noah could make me laugh about the dumbest things." "That's a gift," Matt said, returning the frame to its place. "To make someone laugh like that, it was his superpower," I agreed. That and knowing exactly how to annoy me when he wanted to. The ability to speak about Noah in this way with fondness and humor, acknowledging both his extraordinary qualities and his ordinary human faults, felt like a new development in my grief. Not an erasure of pain, but an integration of it into a more complete remembrance of who he actually was. Not just the brother I lost, but the brother I had for 24 precious years. Later that night, as Matt slept beside me, I found myself looking at the framed photo in the dim light filtering through the curtains. Noah and me, laughing together, caught in a moment of pure joy neither of us knew was being preserved for posterity. "The last laugh is in it," I whispered, echoing the thought that had haunted me since his passing, but now with a different meaning. The last laugh isn't just about what was lost when Noah died. It's about what remains, the ability to find joy, to share connection, to see humor even in life's most difficult moments. It's the gift my brother gave me throughout his too short life, and continues to give me even now, if I'm willing to receive it. The photograph in its silver frame still sits by my bed, not as a painful reminder of a prophetic comment I dismissed, but as a celebration of a brother who knew, better than most, how to live fully in each moment he was given. "Stop being dramatic," I had said on that cliff in California, not knowing those casual words would become part of the story I'd replay endlessly in grief. But perhaps Noah, my brilliant, intuitive, occasionally annoying little brother, would say the same thing to me now, seeing how I've carried his memory these past 2 years. Perhaps the final gift he offers through that last captured laugh is permission to live as fully as he did, to find humor in unexpected places, to take the scenic route, to be present in each moment rather than always planning for the next. The silver frame holds what's lost, yes, but it also holds what remains. The love, the memories, the countless ways Noah shaped who I am and continue to become. The last laugh isn't just his, preserved in a photograph taken on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. It's also mine, hard-won through grief, but genuine nonetheless. A laugh that acknowledges both the pain of absence and the gift of having had Noah in my life at all, even if for less time than I'd planned. A laugh that understands, finally, what my brother seemed to know instinctively, that every moment, even ordinary ones on sun-drenched California highways, deserves our full attention. Because we never really know which moments will become our most treasured memories, which photos will become our last. Narrated by Sophia, 27, who lost her younger brother Noah